Well, hi folks. It's been 3 years since the last episode, and personally I never thought I was going to return to this series. On one hand, my camera died. On the other, I had obligations at the time. I also didn't care much for the response from YouTube, but I don't want to dive into any of that. What I'm going to do is finish off what I started, the Censored 11. But first, some changes to my format you need to know. I am now a duck, because I like drawing ducks. I am also going to show still images of the cartoons instead of playing the videos. I really don't feel like dealing with copyright strikes, so that'll make my life a little easier. Well, with that out of the way, let us begin. The Merry Melodies cartoon Uncle Tom's Bungalow is directed by Tex Avery. The toon is a parody of the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. It starts off with a narrated introduction to the main characters, Little Ava, Topsy, Uncle Tom, and Eliza from Dixie. They also introduce the villain, Simon Legree, pronounced Simone, but I'm just going to call him Simon. He's a used slave salesman. And last but not least, the hounds. Those lazy hounds. This introduction scene gives me a big smile with just how silly it is. This is the beauty of Tex Avery's humor. The complete break in the fourth wall sets the tone for this cartoon perfectly. So the story begins with Simon coming out of his shack with a whip that he starts cracking in midair. He makes his way over to Uncle Tom and starts whipping him off screen. Meanwhile, little Ava and Topsy skips down the road together. They hear the off-screen whipping and start moving their little legs to save Uncle Tom. They offer to buy him from Simon, but this mustache-twirling villain gives the children a contract and tells them that if they fall back on their payments, he'll reclaim Uncle Tom. After that, the children take Uncle Tom home. Time passes into winter, and we see Simon looking over his books. It turns out Ava and Topsy are 3 months past due on their payments. So Simon starts lurking towards the children's home, like the creepy bastard he is. Of course, the narrator is having none of this and puts it upon himself to warn the kids. After hiding Tom in a painting, Simon comes at the door. This snake of a man just burst into the children's home without knocking. Where are their parents, you ask? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Simon demands the children to bring him Uncle Tom. They refuse, and he starts slithering around like a snake looking for him. He looks under a couch and ends up sticking his fingers in an electrical socket. Ah, that is satisfaction. Simon, probably wrecked with pain, threatens to whip the children. Jeez, as if this guy wasn't enough of a scumbag. Well, Eliza bursts through a door behind Simon, knocking him over. Eliza scoops up the kids and starts running out of the house. Simon chases after them, calling those lazy hounds, now covered in snow. Eliza and the kids make it to a river with no ice cover. They seem trapped until the narrator points out that there is an ice machine right next to them. This thing acts like a slot machine, and Eliza hits the jackpot. Ice blocks pour out of the machine and make a path for them to cross, Simon and the hounds closing in behind them. Once on the other side of the river, Eliza trips over a log. Simon and the hounds surround them, lifting his whip in the air. Before he could perform violence upon them, a car horn sounds. It's Uncle Tom, riding in a fancy car with a pile of cash in his hand. He pays off Simon, and then little Ava asks him where he got all that money, and Uncle Tom pulls out a pair of dice and rolls them on the snow, revealing that they are in fact loaded. Oh boy. That's it for Uncle Tom's Bungalow. All in all, it's not a bad cartoon. The animation is great, a lot of the jokes landed for me, and it has that great Looney Tunes feeling. Most of the jokes were a play on the time period, and the only thing I wish they would have left out was that ending joke. This kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. The Merry Melodies cartoon Jungle Jitters was directed by Friz Freeling in 1938. The tune starts off with an African tribe going about their day. A couple of goofy gags that get a laugh out of me transpires. Of course, all the characters are depicted in stereotypes and can come off offensive to someone with weak sensibilities. All I really see is zany jokes with poor character design choices. Maybe it could have taken place in a different location. Oh well. Anyway, a salesman comes at the tribe's door and knocks. He tries to get in, but keeps missing his chance, or gets thwarted at his attempts to enter. He finally gets his foot in the door, literally, As the salesman peddles his wares, the tribesmen start imagining him as a cooked chicken. So they grab him and put him in a giant cauldron to cook, salting it to taste. The tribesman looks through the salesman's briefcase, finding all kinds of products that they comically use in different sequences. As the salesman comes to a boil, the tribesmen get restless and start banging their knives and fork on the table. This gets the attention of their queen, which is a bird lady for some reason. She asks what is going on, and in a very stereotypical Asian voice, one of the tribesmen tells her of the salesman. She tells them to bring him to her. So the queen asks the salesman what he is doing here, and he starts on his sales pitch. He shows her a self-buttering toaster. As he continues with his pitch, the queen imagines him as Clark Gable and Robert Taylor. Meanwhile, the tribesmen are imagining him as a plump turkey. And at least I think it's a turkey. It could be a chicken, I don't know. The queen, all of a sudden, wants to marry him. In a quick movement, she is in a wedding dress, and they have a preacher. So, the salesman is forced to marry the queen. The queen tries to kiss the salesman, but he runs away from her and jumps into the cauldron. He states that he hopes they all get indigestion and dives into his fate. This tune was just too silly. I would recommend this one. It's just got some great jokes. The Isle of Pingo Pongo is a 1938 Warner Brothers cartoon directed by Tex Avery. Yay! I love Tex Avery! The tune begins with a narrator stating the start of our journey to Pingo Pongo. The narrator spouts off these play-on-word jokes with different islands on our journey. It's one of those kind of cartoons that are akin to those old kind of travelogue films in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. It goes on with jokes about the nature of the island. The gags are great. It reminds me of those episodes of Ren and Stimpy that were obviously referencing these kind of cartoons. I was starting to wonder why this tune was banned when they introduced the natives. It's your normal, stereotypical tribesmen with some pretty funny gags around them. They have this part which just struck me on. They used rotoscoping, which didn't gel well with the previous animation. It's just a bit jarring to me. The tribesmen start doing a whole dance routine in this style and jumps from gag to gag. It ends with the guy who has been throughout the cartoon asking, "Now, boss?" and getting a "no" in reply from the narrator. This time the narrator gives him a go-ahead and he shoots the sun, ending the cartoon. Previously, the narrator described the tribal drums as a primitive, savage rhythm. The tribesmen then go into some jazz numbers in between and throughout the cartoon. This kinda instigated that jazz is primitive and savage, which I disagree full-heartedly. Who knows, maybe they just wanted to do a joke and didn't realize that that was what they were instigating. Aside from that, the tune was okay. Nothing I'd watch again anytime soon, but okay. Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs is a 1943 Merry Melodies cartoon directed by Bob Clampett. The tune starts off with a mother rocking her child in a rocking chair. She asks what story they want to hear, and the child says she wants to hear the tale of Snow White. The whole tune is a frantic retelling of the tale. Just imagine all the racial stereotypes of black people in the 40s packed into one cartoon. Nothing much to really say here, just that the animation is top-notch, and only a few jokes got me to laugh. The rest just comes off wrong. Tin Pan Alley Cats is a 1943 Merry Melodies cartoon directed by Bob Clampett. A cat depiction of Fats Waller's out on the town. A street preacher stops him on the way to the bar. He tells him to not go there and be tempted by white women and song. The cat takes this as incentive to continue his journey. He enters the bar and starts playing musical instruments and a song breaks out. The cat talks to the singer for a bit, then the singer tells him that he'll send him out of this world. The cat seems to like the idea and gets sent into another world via trumpet. The cat is sent to a bizarre world that reminds me of a cartoon called Porky and Wacky Land. A bunch of bizarre gags start to happen all around the cat. Holy crap, an early depiction of Cat Dog. Hey, there's the Rubber Band Band. Nice. And then there's this strange depiction of Hitler and Hideki Tojo. Okay. Then we have Joseph Stalin doing a Russian dance, kicking Hitler's ass in the process. Not going to lie, this made me laugh. After this, he comes out of the wacky world and zips back to the street preacher and starts singing with him. The preacher and his congregation are taken aback from this and ask, "What's the matter with him?" And that's where it ends. This one was just strange. I kinda like it. But I like strange shit anyway. Angel Puss is a 1944 Looney Tunes cartoon directed by Chuck Jones. We start with the same character that was in All This and Rabbit Stew, flipping a coin, holding a sack, and walking down a dock. We come to find out that he is getting ready to kill a cat in the river. The cat gets out of the sack as the character talks to himself. The cat then fills the sack with bricks behind his back. The character starts to feel bad for what he's about to do and says he can't do it. The cat uses a lead pipe to speak to him, telling him to do it, reminding him of the payment he got for doing this. The character can't bring himself to do the deed, but the cat insists. The cat convinces him to do it, and he does, not knowing of the bricks. The cat makes him think that he is dead, and the character sobs over this. Poor guy. Afterwards, we see the cat dressing himself as an angel, all painted in white. Then we see the character stumbling into a graveyard, clearly resentful of what he has done. The cat starts tormenting him with his costume through some silly gags. At one point, the cat scares him off, and he gets him to come back by just jiggling some dice in his hands. The cat then scares him off and goes running after him. He chases him through a house and out a window where they both fall into a body of water below them. The paint comes off of the cat and reveals that he is not dead. The cat tries to scare him again and again, not realizing that the paint has washed off of him, until he gets to a mirror. Then the character picks up a gun and points it at the cat. He backs him into a closet and shoots him. He is very surprised to find that all 9 of the cat's lives have turned into ghosts and come after him. The end. This one wasn't bad. It felt like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. The character's design and that one joke with the dice seemed to be the only racial jokes in the tune. All in all, I think it's worth a watch. Goldilocks and the Javan Bears is a 1944 Merry Melodies cartoon directed by Fritz Freeling. The tune starts off with the piano player regaling the tale of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. He introduces the 3 bears and they start playing some instruments. They start playing a piece from Raymond Scott and we see some silly gags with the bears. Their instruments start burning up because they're playing too hard. They decide to go out for a walk and let their instruments cool down. Now, the narrator introduces us to the Big Bad Wolf from Little Red Riding Hood's story. He gets a telegram from Red Riding Hood saying that she can't make it to Grandma's house. The wolf gets pissed and starts pacing the room until he hears a knocking at the 3 bears' house across the way. He sees Goldilocks and gets excited at this prospect. We see Goldilocks entering the 3 bears' house, where she skips the food and goes straight to bed. She does the whole story bit, you know, this bed is too hard, too soft, just right. The narrator tells her goodnight and she gives the same. Then we see the wolf in the same bed, who also gives a good night to her. She states that he is not the 3 bears, and the wolf starts chasing her. As this happens, the narrator lets us know that the 3 bears are coming back from their walk. They burst in and think that the wolf and Goldilocks are doing the jitterbug, so they start playing their instruments. The wolf starts getting into it, and Goldilocks joins, making the wolf run away with her aggressive dancing, and corners him. This turns into a pretty funny sequence of the wolf trying to get away, but Goldilocks finding him at every turn. She ultimately tires the wolf out, and he escapes back to Grandma's house. Little Red Riding Hood comes to him as he is exhausted, dressed as Granny in her bed. She goes through the whole shtick of the big eyes and teeth, but the wolf is just too tired to mess with her. Red is kind of disappointed that he won't chase after her. Well, the 3 bears burst in and start playing their instruments, which strangely is in Grandma's house. Then Grandma comes out of a closet and forces the wolf to dance with her. This cartoon was just a fun combination of both fairy tales. The stereotypes didn't bother me that much in this one. Just a silly play on some good old stories. Well, that's all of them. All in all, they are some enjoyable cartoons. Great animation and some good jokes strewn throughout. I feel it would be a terrible thing to forget these cartoons. They don't seem hateful and just use the stereotypes as cheap jokes. If you got some time on your hands and are ready to look at these with a non-biased eye, I say check them out. But if you're just an oversensitive person, then, well, you're probably not going to like these cartoons. But I am of the belief that we should never forget the past, lest we end up repeating it. Okay, well, that's finally done. Now I can talk about some of my favorite animated films. What should I start with? Ah, yes, this one.